Good morning. I'm Marta Medeiros and I'm with my colleague Wanda Marques. We are representing the Azores government. We are here to share with you our experience in data harmonization and show you what has been our choices and difficulties. The implementation process in Inspire of Azores began in 2009. At the time, we had 2 persons dedicated to the project, a software developer and a GIS technician. The software developer started to build the metadata editor, and the GIS technician started to build a geodatabase based in the data specifications. This is our metadata manager of Azores that creates metadata in compliance with the Inspire directive rules and the national profile. It allows the creation, edition, submission of metadata files to our regional metadata catalog called the metadata system of Azores. Besides of the metadata editor, another step was the creation of a relational geodatabase that obeyed the structure of the data specifications. To be honest, at the time we didn't know very well the concept of compliant. We thought that if data was structured in that data model of that geodatabase, it will be considered compliant. This is the structure of that Inspire geodatabase. We had 1 data set per team with the respective feature types, tables, and relationships. It was a very complex structure, and constant modifications were made because of new versions of data specifications or because of errors detected. The main problems at that time, we had duplication of existing data because we still had the original data in the file geodatabase serving the users, and we had the Inspire geodatabase serving only in the Inspire purposes. Another problem was the importing data into that geodatabase was not simple, at least for many users. And although the geodatabase structure was according with the UML structure, the data needed to be transformed by a ETL tool. Although with that structure, it became much easier to do the mapping in Hail Studio. Last year, following some examples of other organisms, we've decided to use open source tools. So that was our workflow. We're still having the original data in a file geodatabase, we're still using the Inspire geodatabase, and now a new geodatabase in PostgreSQL format. Why that new geodatabase? In order to easiest the connection between geodatabase, Hail, and the publication services in GeoServer. This is the structure of the 3 geodatabases. The left one is the original database, divided into 9 islands of the Azores. The middle one is the Inspire geodatabase, as I already speak about. And the right one is the PostgreSQL geodatabase. We have 1 per team. Still having the problem of more data replication. So what could be the solution? The solution could be having the data only in 1 geodatabase. Not an Inspired DB, but an Inspired DB, also serving Hail and GeoServer. This is an example of that Inspired geodatabase. It has a well-defined structure serving the purposes of a specific team, in this case, cadastral parcel teams. And we only added a few fields and created views to easiest the mapping in Hail. As I already said, our ETL tool is Hail Studio. This is part of the alignment of the cadastral team. the object in the source target geom zoning section is a view combining various tables to give the necessary information to the target schema, in this case the Inspire cadastral parcel scheme. We always activate the compatibility mode GeoServer because our goal is to have our services published in that software. And when we finish the mapping and have sure that all the validation are completed successfully, we select the option to export app schema by direct upload. Normally, we succeeded in exportation, but there are some teams that we couldn't export the app schema, and we didn't understood why. After the app schema exportation, we try to do all the necessary configurations on the GeoServer to be Inspire compliant. We have got satisfied with the validation process. We had some problems in the WFS interoperability, but we thought that 50% was a good result. But when we went to GeoPortal automatic viewer and we saw that none of our metadata records had a resource linkage found, we literally got dead faces. So we had to review all the work done, correct the mistakes, but unfortunately it wasn't enough. And because we are having problems with our WFS, we decided to configure Atom instead. We are still doing this job, working, hoping that some problems will be fixed soon. And basically this is our process. We try, we fail, we try again many times, try to put the pieces in the right place, we go forward, we go back. We get angry, and also get very happy when we achieve some goals. So basically, is this. So thank you for your attention. Any questions?
Since you explained so nicely your emotional roller coaster you went through, by the way, also that thematic viewer has not been finished yet, so it was under development, but I also noticed when I looked at data from Portugal first time, it was only Azores popping up actually at the beginning. And apparently then you had already done some of your fixing work so far to the introduction. Did you find it somewhat meaningful to make these changes, or could you understand why you had to make these changes, or did you find that kind of just for the sake of this viewer type of thing?
We understood that we had problems in the stored queries in GeoServer. So because that wasn't working, we decided to use Atom. We know Atom is not the best solution. It's just to have the things still working now. It's not a permanent solution, we know that. We are trying to figure out how to do it in GeoServer, but we have some difficulties.
We sometimes have problem knowing if it's our problem as a technician to understand the errors. If it's a thematic viewer problem because it was like in a beta version, and sometimes for example, we had 2 or 3 teams that in the first time we saw it, they were okay, and we said, oh, okay, it's done. The next harvesting process, we went already, saw again, and everything was gone, and we said, well, something is wrong, and we didn't did anything, and we still have a problem with the software. So sometimes what we feel is we have 3 problems: software, our knowledge, and sometimes even the portals. So there are days that we say, we're not going to do anything, we're going to wait to see if it's really a problem of us or not, because we lose a lot of works. This is very important for the government of Azores, but sometimes it's a little bit frustrating, and I think everyone that I talked here in the conference is like, we don't know if really it's our problem or whatever.
So is something that I'm going to explain during my presentation, but also we have the same problem, and we have some technicians that are really involved in all those open source developments. So somehow they went to the solution, and some of the bugs or the problems we reported to GeoServer solved in-house, and then have been solved in GeoServer, and some other we also have made some adjustments, and we achieved the WFS 3.0 Inspire. So we can continue discussing this, because probably we will meet again during the Spanish Iberian SDIs, or if not, during the conference.
The problem is, like, we are a GIS technician, right? We're not the developer. We're not, we don't have the knowledge or enough knowledge to go to the GeoServer program and say, we're going to transform this to, when we know the basics, and that's it. We study a lot, but some things are out of our knowledge. And well, we talk with for example, the GeoServer developers, and said, we're finding these problems, so you have to fix it, because we don't have those knowledge to go in the background and do that. Okay.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So my presentation is going to be a bit of a different one under this Fitness for Purpose title of the session, and it's going to be more on the, let's say, on the governance side of things, how our work here on Inspire, from an EEA, Eionet, this is our European network with all the countries, how we see this connected with Inspire. What the Commission is using these days is a legal tool, which is a staff working document, which guides us on this. And this document summarizes 10 actions. It's from 2017. And I like to explain to you briefly how we are going to involve us, as I mentioned, and our network into those actions. And you see different types of actions, 1 and 2, they are around the legal side of things. We see a set of actions in the block 2 here, which are have very much to do with what we are discussing here in the conference. So about technologies, about Inspire, about reporting tools, and so on. And we now have another set of actions, which is a little bit the wider set of things, even though Copernicus and citizen science, I think that's also been discussed as a big new field where data is coming from. So just to go through this, amending legislation, that is of course not something the EEA or the countries can really, I mean, directly influence at least. So indirectly, we're looking at what the Commission is undertaking in terms of which areas are being touched. And out of the directive, which they change, I mean, I should maybe make one more statement. I mean, there has been the idea that the environmental reporting as such needs a brush up. One has been looking over it, all the pieces which are out there. Things were not working ideally, they never will, but I mean, this is another effort of getting this better and clearer, and out of this, many directives, those 10 have been identified as a kind of a first go, and those which are highlighted here, the noise directive, Inspire, there has also been done some alignment on Inspire, and then the Birds and Habitats directives and the EPRTR. These are some initial legal tools which are being changed. Now, it's not enough to change the legal tool, but it's also then necessary to look at what does this, I mean, how does this reporting obligation really develop in terms of what it's asking for. That comes in the next slide. But the fitness check, which was a basis for the action list I showed, it happened in 2016. It identified so and so many pieces of legislation. As you will know, some of the legislation do not have only one reporting piece, but several. And there's also not a one-to-one match between reporting obligations and data flows. So this is the whole kind of scope of the exercise. We, with our network, are involved in 108 of these data flows, which we are actually handling on behalf of the European, on behalf of the European Commission, in support of the European Commission. And we have a system called ReportNet to do that. And those belong to 29 different legal instruments. You see, I mean, it's only around exactly half of the environmental legislation which we are handling. Also, some of the environmental legislation doesn't really require data reporting, so that is why not everything is kind of on the same level here as well. We have been sharpening, together with the Commission, our way of how we engage us in the process, and many of you, or some of you, may recognize here typical steps of a data management life cycle, but I like to start here on the left side. And we really, all the activities we are doing, we are really systematically now allocating to these steps. So this is the beginning. To make it short, the first 3 steps are about thinking how the legislation should look like and what kind of data it may need and so on. Here you're getting then more factual. I mean, the data sets have been identified, and then starts the data collection. The countries are being supported by various means with the data collection. Maybe there are some web forms or other things being prepared. Then the data acquisition as such starts. This is a process with a few back and forth steps where first data comes and it may not correct, and then there is automated QA and the data has been sent back. So these processes happen here. And then the next step is to make out of these national bits and pieces, and we will have to probably do the same with Inspire data coming in at some point, it's not the case yet, into a data processing which then ends up with the European data sets. And we have heard in the conference here also that there is a call, let's have some European data sets to really show the value of Inspire, at least on the European level. I'd like to remind you that this reflection also holds for the national level. I mean, you may also say, let's see some national data sets based on regional submissions or so. And then out of that, the Commission gets the stuff back, let's say, and they want to do assessment, they want to criticize the countries, or they want to praise them, and they do a report, and that is the last step of this channel. Now that we have been doing this reporting, and I showed you in which volume, since since the year 2000, I would say, systematically with ReportNet, the system is coming a bit to its age. So it's a modular system right now. So it works with a database where the obligations are in, a place which is called data dictionary, where you have all the schemas or the data element descriptions. There is a piece which is called content registry, which is about metadata. And there is a delivery system as such, which is an envelope-based system into which the countries are putting their data. And some of you, many of you, I don't know, will have some experience with this. So this is what we have, but we have been already, since last year, started to work on something we call ReportNet 2.0, because we saw we're getting, I mean, more and more complex structures, more and more data is coming in. We have now more security issues, hack-in is happening and so on. And also the stability of the system, especially in times when a lot of data was flowing in, was a bit under pressure. So that is ReportNet 2.0. We have pretty much delivered it, and now we started through this year with extra funding the developments of ReportNet 3.0. And what we do here is we address a set of things in different ways. So one thing is that we need to start with the Inspire integration. So in other words, we will have to explore how we can do data harvesting. We had in the conference another presentation where my colleague showed some elements of our study here, where we, in the area of nature data, we're trying out how can we really digest the various forms of data and which come from the country. So we're doing this in the moment together with a scoping study in order to find out what is actually the architecture of the new ReportNet. And when we are done with this at the end of the year, we will tender a bit earlier, and then we will have also a good set of money available to do then the real developments of the system. What we should also address over time, but we're not doing it in the first phase really, is how to integrate into this vast amount of Copernicus data which is coming now. And you know, Copernicus data, it's not coming country by country, but then you have the European data sets and so on. So it's a different kind of logic behind there. Also, and we have also heard some presentations here, into the whole legal reporting game, let's say, a citizen science data is slowly finding some entry as well. So that is also probably provided in a different way. And however the new system would look like, the new reporting system, it would need to accommodate for this. But we focus in the moment on turning this system into one where we have more of a, where I think I can say that already from the scoping study, where we have more of a collaboration platform, one, where we turn the envelope-based delivery into a file-based, the file-based delivery into a database delivery, so everything will go into a database, and it will be differently possible to do extractions as by the steps I showed earlier. And then we will have, in some way or another, we will have the data harvesting being accommodated. Next actions. Action 4 and 5 are support actions, and we have had a workshop here in the conference on this support action. DG Environment has launched a contract, a study you could say, to promote best practice around National Environmental Information System. One thing is you are obliged to provide data under these reporting obligations, but next to this, all the countries, the regions, cities have quite interesting environmental information systems where they provide their maps, some functions you need for managing a city and so on. So we wanted to learn from all these good experiences around Europe, and the project is pulling together as good as possible the best practices there. And we're doing this very much in the spirit of, that is why there is this picture, of an activity which is around the sharing of information system. I mean, we have plotted this, well, good 10 years ago to increase data sharing. I mean, moving away from this reporting into, let's say, online information services. And the two actions are a little bit different in the sense that one action is actually looking into how does harvesting and how does this modern type of information service, how does this function and how is it being implemented already in the countries? Because we have some examples around which already working and we like to learn from that. So action 4 and 5, this are, and action 4 is about more the EU institutions and the experience they have and the needs they have. So it's basically a desk study, and there's also a bit on what are the available technologies in there. So this is pretty much amongst the EU, the European institution guys, while we have the second element where the national environmental information systems are looked at. And we have had 2 workshops now with selected member states. They were coming in along that discussion the Commission had on streamlining reporting and fitness for purpose over the last 2 years based on the 2016 report. So they were kind of founding the initial addressees. And we had these 2 workshops, and we were just having some discussions, and we're preparing some elements. One element, by the way, you find it when you go to the website, is an overview of best practice from the countries in terms of these information systems. So there you find links to let's say, the Scottish environmental website or some Austrian water information system or a national information system from Slovenia or whatever there is. Huh? And this is also being complemented with survey results. If somebody is interested to contribute to that, I think we can always do better. I mean, we have still a bit of patchy picture, and we are not thinking that we have covered all the good practice in Europe. So if you have something you would like to raise or to recommend, I think you can go there and you find a way to submit this best practice experience. Action 6. Action 6 is now really about Inspire, and this is an action where I'm not going to spend directly so much time on. This action 6 has been kind of, for us, it falls into some sub-actions. One is that we, under the maintenance scheme for Inspire, we share one, or we co-share one working group on those so-called priority data sets. What is this? In short, it is an activity to prioritize under the richness of the whole Inspire umbrella, what are now, when it comes to the needs of the European bodies and to the e-reporting, to the reporting requirements, what are now really the data sets we would like to see. And I think we have a quite good group here with this bulky name, 2016-5, on priority data sets. We had a workshop Tuesday morning. Countries are being asked to provide their data. You people from Azores, you didn't speak about the tagging, but maybe environmental data sets, they also will need some tagging and so on. So This also comes with some extra work, yes, but it really helps us to find out of these 115,000 data sets which are, or metadata records, which are in the Inspire EU catalog, finding those which are most relevant to what we need here for the environmental reporting. And then there was another presentation by Jose, how it's going with the implementation. That's a task we have as well, to monitor are things growing, which countries are doing better, which countries are doing not yet so well, these type of things. So we have been looking at the growth in data set and services. And I mean, without further detail, you can see there is movement, there is dynamic, there are imbalances, but the story is certainly going on. In order to, I'm coming now to my next area a little bit, in order to have this wider, more modern system, we are looking at this broader data management scheme, which in a way shows the different types of data we will be getting in the future. And I can already see our director presented all these ambitions there are to be analytic and systemic around the food chain or the circular economy. I think this needs combination of data, if you want to really do it, in a different way than we used to work in the past. So for that, we will indeed need data from Copernicus. We will need data here from this whole reporting process. But as I mentioned earlier, we will also need citizen data, and we talked in this conference to a degree about public-private partnerships, and that this would need to raise more and grow more. So maybe we will find telecom data merged with some environmental data. But in order to do all that, we have to do further activities, right? And that is why we have these other actions, 7 and 8 in particular, also 9. So what is happening in the Copernicus area? Actually, a colleague of mine is now at the same time in another session giving a presentation on Copernicus and in situ. But first of all, the European Commission is looking once more at their need for Copernicus services. So this is a JRC-led study, and it's a little bit delayed. We are really waiting for the outcome for the Q4 this year. So that should give us another storyline or more than a storyline actually. It should give us guidance on where's the most interest, what is best feasible in terms of integrating Copernicus data, because we potentially get a lot of Copernicus data, but it's not also so straightforward to all integrate it. So there needs to be work on this. And yeah, you may know or not, I mean, EEA we are hosting the Copernicus land monitoring service. So there we have been doing a set of things and activities, and we interact with our contact points in the countries on land cover. We have a topic center working on it, so there are quite some activities. There's also, that's where Inspire has been discussed in this Eagle group, how to further develop the methodology on land use, land cover, accounting. I have to hurry up a little bit, I realize. So we're doing a set of things, and yeah, the presentation is in parallel. Promoting citizen science data, it's a bit a young plant, but we have some first activities around air quality, and we had here yesterday afternoon in the room, we had a presentation which was actually speaking about those activities as well. So some countries joining together and getting more operational regarding air quality data. We used to do something on marine litter, on nature. Quickly over this, we have on the EU level also, I can't really explain this in length, between the key EU institutions, we are improving our way, how we deal with data. So we're consolidating in the bottom of the trees at the roots, the data provider side, and we look at what are the different platforms, being it on chemicals, on forest, on water, on biodiversity, how do the different portals look like? And there we go from a model which had institutions here, and they had responsibilities like Eurostat on waste and resources and so on, to a model where actually everybody is taking care of data. And for example, for the chemistry story, for the chemistry portal, we make sure the data relevant to chemistry from these organizations is coming in. And a similar thing for water, where there are more institutions involved. But this needs, and that is the important message, this needs a set of discussions and agreements around those 5 points, which is also about metadata, it is about how to share, so it's very much a similar discussion than we have around Inspire. And last but not least, and sorry for that, running a bit late, we're doing, Europe is Europe, but Europe is also the neighborhood, so we have an activity where we look with those countries and together with UNECE and UNEP at how can we go about bringing them better in, and this is on the level of indicators and some selected indicators, and this is on the level of self-assessment, and you can see, of course, the outer countries are more interested in this exercise usually than the core European countries, but it's also enhancing the availability of data. I skip over that. I forgot to add the picture I wanted to take from Antwerp, so here we are with the end of my presentation. This is the current solution, how we get an overview what is available from the countries, right? I think it's pretty clear, the EU geoportal, in terms of where the metadata is. When we build the new ReportNet system, that's where the discussion becomes interesting, but that could be a longer answer. When we build the new reporting system, we have to, with this data harvesting, we have to find out where is the data before we harvest it. To which degree we do this through the geoportal as an initial starting point for the metadata, or we go directly to the member state portals, that we still have to figure out. Maybe we go, but we want to also reduce the dependency on other systems. So we are aware of this. This is part of that new ReportNet, but how this is architecture-wise done, to be seen. Next year, more.
So this is the title of my presentation, just trying to inspire somehow data providers. And, well, I would like to start just giving a picture. Don't worry, it's my copyright, so I have taken this picture, so can be shared with anyone. It doesn't matter. This inspiring picture that could be relaxed for someone, from some others could be like stressing a bit, just being around, always surrounded by water. For those that doesn't know, this is the Titicaca Lake in Peru, in between Peru and Bolivia. And in the middle of the lake, there are those kind of islands made by the humans, but somehow unrelated with the specific theme I'm going to talk. This could be mapped, and we could create some really good cadastral parcels. Why not? So this is about collaboration. This is something that we have been listening during those days, during the whole week. Collaboration among the different stakeholders related to the different themes. And in this specific case, Spain is somehow special in cadastral parcels because instead of having only one, let's check where you are, here, only one organization to deal with cadastral parcels, there are another 4 that, because of the legal situation, have the responsibility to also provide the cadastral parcels. Government of Navarre is region level, and the other 3 are province level, so totally different levels. But we achieved to get all together working under the same experience we had from the General Directorate of Cadastre and share everything about. And this is the agreements that we have achieved on different levels. So we, at the end, decided to go on the same data model. So this is something, not only the cadastral parcel, but something specific for the country. We reached an agreement also for the representation, for the WMS styles. Saulius also we included the OpenELS WMS styles. And what we decided is to go, someone just going for using Atom for downloading and so on. And we went by using WFS. So at the end, all the information was there, and all could be represented somehow. Regarding the data model, we have used the HAIL open source for preparing the alignment that could be then included in GeoServer. So the configuration was really easy. We had a good experience with HAIL, with the data models, with cadastral parcels, so harmonization was really easy. We supported to those organizations that were not able or didn't have the knowledge to do or have some difficulties, but at the end the harmonization was quite easy. About the services, the idea was just to use GeoServer. This is the version we use for GeoServer, GeoTools, and the plugins of Inspire and Application Scheme to support specifically the creation of those complex features we had. Well, this was not so easy because it requires some specific modification on the GeoServer to be Inspire compliant. We are lucky because we have a very, let's say, a freaky man that is always just playing in the open source solutions, and he's involved in several solutions, and he is quite expert in GeoServer. So we have to make some modification. On one side, on the alignment from HAIL, yes, require from our side some specific configuration to be used later on GeoServer. And we detected some bugs from GeoServer. We detected, we corrected, and we reported some of them, the most complicated, to the GeoServer team. The first were related to the get feature and get feature info to manage those complex layers, and was reporting under that geos, blah, 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 blah. And it was now solved by GeoServer. So this is not anymore a problem for any of you. GetMap is not fully supported for the internal management of complex geometries. So, I mean, multi-surface. So this is something that we solve internally. Open to share, of course, always. And we also detected some additional bugs in terms of publication of the lawyers by different workspaces. And it was also reported to GeoServer, and we are lucky. They are also solved by GeoServer. So you never more will have any problem with this or with that. But still, GeoServer needs some adjustments, specific adjustments, to verify and correct all those when we are just trying to create the GML, where is the direction where the points should be included. And this is related, of course, with the get feature and get feature info. And this was also solved, but internally. So those adjustments, maybe we can also share, as I'm not the expert, of course, we can be in contact. And we also have to prepare a new configuration in the plugin Inspire for the elements WMS, WFS, WCS, and WMTS to create some extended capabilities we were doing or offering. But, yes, some difficulties, but they have been all solved. Still a little bit more, so step forward. Validation. In this occasion, for validation, we don't really agree any step to follow and to be all of us following the same steps. So we perform different validation for data, metadata, and services using almost all the existing validators, almost all, because sure, there are more and more. But for the all validator of Inspire, and I include the link of all of them just in case someone will need. The one from Spatineo, the GeoPortal of Czech Republic, the EM Plus validator, also the GDI, the German test suite. And well, I have to tell you, German people, this is quite good, it's very well performing, and it's one of the best we have found for doing this, this validation. And of course, finally, the new validator of Inspire that you can imagine, I'm talking about November 2017, and at that time, we used only for the web services, and we are still just trying to get more and more comfortable using this validation. But I have to tell you that we, as regional government, I'm having today the hat of data provider from a region. So as data provider, that is SIDNA, the organization representative in Navarre, we reached the maximum level of validation. And interoperability among the different cadastres in Spain, yes, is real. We performed this, this exercise that just has been mentioned several times during this week. Just try to go into the details of your neighborhood, countries, regions, province, and this is what we have. Here we have this is Navarre, always in this kind of green, light green, and the others, neighborhood regions. This is Álava, Navarre. This is from the Navarre specific, and the other, La Rioja and Aragon, are from the General Directorate of Cadastre, so it's on the national level. We also have Guipúzcoa and Navarre together, and when we reached to have Guipúzcoa and Navarra, it was quite nice, but France was missing for us. Sorry, we didn't achieve for the cross-border country cadastral process. So what's next? We already have cadastral parcels, but don't forget, this is the legal mandate we have, because we are the responsible organization in Navarre. But we have more information. We have more information that is more precise, more accurate, that is more up-to-date, that is being used by several users in our region. We could also prepare some additional information according to Inspire. It's not under our responsibility. We are not, maybe it's not necessary, who knows, but addresses, geographical names, even buildings. We have been working together at a national level just to provide all those kind of information all together, the most up-to-date information. The information is provided right now by the national level, but we still have some more additional information. My question is, should we doing that? Should we providing this information according to Inspire? Is there any application, just think about any solution just to have, for example, all the addresses in Europe together? Is there any gazetteer where we can read the most up-to-date information? This is the way I would like some of the audience inspire us as data provider, why we should invest in this. If not, Inspire still is a success. Why not? But we will miss more specific and up-to-date information. So so far, fits for purpose, fits this information of the cadastral parcels for purpose, for the purpose of Inspire, but outside Inspire, let me tell you that I must answer no. But there are some reasons. Fits for purpose, for Inspire, but no for the rest of the people, because we already have people using this information as we are providing. So at the end, we are duplicating to comply with the legal legislation, but we are duplicating this information. The user needs, that's not only depend on the Inspire for cadastral parcels. You can imagine it's one of the most simple data model, but they depends on some other additional factors, and this will require by our side to rearrange all the workflows, all the developments, all the tools, just to reuse this information. So we will need to redesign all the information. But just come to the conclusions. Reuse must be reinforced. This is something that we also have been listening during the whole week. Since Monday, in this pre-conference, we have to reuse. And not only the user, because we have heard the user should reuse the information. Come on, no. Sometimes we have already the information as data providers. We are also users, and we are using this information under other circumstances. But we also need that developers start to work with this information. Yes, let's think about Copernicus, also mentioned by Stefan. Why, after just almost 4 days, are applications using Sentinel data? Why? Because they are open, because it's transparent, because we know the frequency, because we know everything about this information. And this is easy for the developers because they always know when is this information coming to them, which is the most updated, and so on, so on, so on. So why don't we have something similar for us in Inspire? We need something to continue fighting and working on it. We need that administrations continue working. Just going back to the addresses, the regional administration is asking themselves if they should put, instead of Inspire, under open addresses. So this is something that we should continue discussing, and we need some other companies reusing Inspire. Because Inspire, we said yesterday in the what if session, is not only harmonization, it's more than this, and we need to demonstrate the benefits of Inspire to increase reusability. Thank you so much. Just going back to the image, in this case, maybe we are alone in the middle of the lake, but we still have something to do. They are fishing, so why we cannot continue doing in that way? Better sharing, better collaborating, but if not, also alone, I'm sure we will be able to do it. Thank you very much. Just in case.
In your presentation, you actually mentioned a couple of validators. How do you deal with the differences in the validators when you, because you use them all together? So how do you deal with the changes in the validators?
With the changes, you mean the change during the time, or the change in the different validators? The idea was just to try to reflect that the information, the services we were providing were able to be validated under different circumstances. So this is why we try to say, okay, let's go on all of them, and that's it. So if you are asking for more technological aspects, I'm not the person. If you are interested, I can just
Thank you, Jason. So I'm Thierry Vilmus from BRGM, the French Geological Survey. I will introduce this work, and after Abdel Feliachi from Atos will explain in details. So making inspired data discoverable and findable through popular search engines. So it's quite a long title. So at BRGM, we are implementing the National Inspire Catalog, which is named Geo Catalog. And we know that from an end-user perspective, it's quite hard to find data through search engines, Inspire specialized search engines like geoportals or geocatalogs. The main reason being that general public are even unaware of the existence of such tools. So the idea was to make those content of the catalog discoverable through mainstream search engines like Google or Bing. So how to do that? The solution for us was to expose the content of the catalog with the schema.org vocabulary, which is a standard promoted by big companies like Google, Microsoft, Yahoo, Yandex, and so on. And the mean is to write JSON LD pages or script embedded in HTML pages. So before to start, we have to take into account the French context. So in our geocatalog, it is fed by two ways. So the main way is the classic way by harvesting over catalogs, which are in turn harvesting over smaller catalogs. But we have a second way. Some providers can directly import ISO XML files. And there are two prerequisites before working. So first, we have to map ISO XML tags with schema.org tags. So we used feedback from previous experience. Some people have already worked on this. And the second thing is a crucial point that we need a clean URI approach, because in linked data, everything is works with URI. So that leads to define the national URI policy. To be able to take into account the three types of data providers we have. So data providers we are harvesting and who has an URI policy. So data providers who doesn't have URI policy. And third, data providers who doesn't even have a catalog or SDI, and that we cannot harvesting. Okay, so now
I will try to take it off from here. The general approach that we are following in our work actually is using a generic JSON LD approach. For those who don't know what JSON LD is, actually is a JSON LD for linked data. So it's like a classical JSON LD, but inside we use tags from ontologies to define the properties and the classes that that defines the different entities that are described in the file. For our experimentation, we use it as recommended by the search engines. We use schema.org. So we use the tags of the classes dataset, data catalog, and schema data download to tag the different entities. The data set is for the data sets. The schema data catalog for the different data catalogs from the providers or for the geocatalog. And for the services, we use the classes data download together with the schema web API to describe them. And for the files, we use data download only. These entities are linked through properties defined also in schema.org. From a catalog to the dataset, what's recommended is the property included data catalog, dataset, and in the other way, we use included in data catalog. To declare the different distributions of dataset, we use the properties schema distribution, and inversely the property schema has parts. These are the main tags that I use to structure the JSON LD, but there are many other properties that are used to describe these different entities, and they are mainly used for the indexation, for indexing these entities in the research engines. What is recommended for generally is the context, which is the schema.org, which is the ontology that we are using, the type of the entity, its ID, its name, and its description. And there are more other properties that are not required but recommended, actually. So like the spatial coverage, the temporal coverage, the keywords, and so on. And we can see that the different entities are linked through the properties included in data catalog, for example, here, or the property dataset that will point to the different datasets and the relationship between dataset and the service through the property distribution. So to have a working architecture, the first thing that we have to do is to define a URI policy. So as it is required in linked data, I'm speaking about linked data, the first rule is to use persistent URI that identify our entities. So in practice, we can distinguish two cases. The first one is the data providers that have a URI policy that resolves to a JSON LD, and in this case we can only respect what they are providing. And in the other case where there is no URI policy, or there is a URI policy but that does not resolve to a JSON LD description, in this case we we define a national pattern. So as we can see, there is a pattern for defining catalogs and another for defining datasets. And if one day one provider decides to use their own URI policy, we can use some mechanism from HTTP, namely the 301, to point to the new URI that is defined by the data provider. So, as an example, how this is applied to the data structure. For the providers that have a URI policy, as it is the case for our InBRGM catalog, and this is an ideal in an ideal world where everything works perfectly. This is the perfect architecture. We have a provider catalog that will reference the different data sets with their different distributions. All that we have to do on the catalog level is use schema dataset to point to the different data sets that are provided, and to ask the providers to have their data sets included in the geo catalog. But be more realistic, we can provide with our URI policy and on the architecture of geo catalog a way to propose actually a description in JSON LD of the different data sets that are also linked to the original catalog via schema included in data catalog. So this is a current experimentation. Actually, we're still trying to see how the different search engine, the behavior of different search engine with our JSON LD, with our exposed JSON LD. So we still have some questions we are asking ourselves, and we try to solve them, or maybe open the questions to other experimentations, to other people who are doing experimentations to see how to solve these problems. For examples, we actually can declare a service for data download, but we don't know how to do that for other service like WBS, which is not a download service. So it doesn't fit with our architecture. How to link a catalog to another catalog? Schema.org actually doesn't provide a way to do that in the moment. How to do if actually some search engine, namely Google, is promising to actually understand and index the DCAT properties. For the moment, we are only using schema.org because it's the one recommended by the search engine. But we'll see in the future if we'll mix it with some DCAT, if it make the results better. Our current implementation, we didn't agree yet on a final JSON LD pattern. We have to check that with the data providers and see what is necessary for the indexing. We continue our tests on the indexing. We don't have a final results yet. Maybe we'll be presenting that in the future. Currently, we are doing some tests on some examples only, and we'll see how that will be if we apply all the architecture on the whole national scale, and try to push the solution on other open source projects. So this is clear that this will benefit both national geocatalog and data providers because it makes the content more usable and more visible. And for the public, it's easier to use the search, the classical search engine than going to the geocatalog and look for the data sets there. Actually, it's not a parallel solution. It's not an alternative solution. It's actually a parallel solution that can be used together with the current version of geocatalog to look for the data. And thank you.
Thank you very much. Today we have a presentation about the initiatives on production of core reference dataset. By starting to this, I like to remind that I'm representing the Association of National Mapping and Cadastral Authorities of Europe, and by this association we, now it's 5 years ago, actually started the ambitious program on the developing of European location services, the interactive, the gateway to the interactive Inspire services that are provided by national mapping cadastral authorities, where the user interactively could get a content by triggering the national infrastructures and getting web feature service response to the one window or the one application. And this was considered to be as our contribution to European spatial data infrastructure, and have been well developed by the project called European Location Framework, and further has been moved on by the transition program to European Location Services, which is continuous right now, to the operational services that the user would be able to use the European content, not bit by bit from different countries, but European content when they browse spatial data from authoritative sources. Actually, I will not spend much time on European location services. It was a number of presentations have been provided last year and year before. So if someone interested more about European location services, so please go to last year Inspire presentations and you'll find records and any information about this. What I like to mention now, actually, in the context of the European location services, that this picture shows some kind of offering of the content to European users. And here in the top box, we show that we have data sets, pan-European data sets that have been produced by the contribution of mapping cadastral authorities. For a number of years, we have been, I would say, successful providing those data sets, updated, maintained, and many pan-European users, including all European Commission users, have been able to, free of charge, use this data based on the agreement with the Eurostat without any problems. And this was a real success. So by the Inspire, I thought that this will be even easier. So we will move from the data sets to services, and European Commission stakeholders will have a better capacities in using the content from mapping cadastral authorities, and that's why we have been doing these European location services. But besides the technical challenges, we also faced some licensing pricing challenges, so that we have still diversity in Europe regarding the licensing and pricing terms. And what we discovered that we could probably prioritize better the open services now as a subset of the European location services, just bringing the service sooner to users, to pan-European users, and that's why we started the European Open ELS project, where we try to extract the open services and the open data license conditions to pan-European users. So this box, maybe not flashing well. This upper box in the European location service has been under development now by the project Open ELS, and there we see that because more and more countries are moving on the open data policy, we have a big demand and the faster result in offering the services to pan-European users. But this doesn't stop, of course, the whole program on European location service. So there in the box down, we still are maintaining the services from mapping authorities under evaluation terms for now, till the point when we'll be able to offer it as a commercial service, let's say. Yeah, and actually we thought that by developing European location services and helping better use of Inspire will attract the attention of European stakeholders, and beside the investments our members put to this channel of ELS, we will have a high interest by European users. But the reality is not like this. Actually, reality is that, of course, by developing these services, we cannot do the whole European Union, for example, coverage at once, because different countries move in different speed with the offering Inspire services, and because we have certain requirements for ELS that need to be met, so the countries need to do certain developments for achieving the good results for ELS. And the other reason is that the users didn't capture the interactive services today. So, and the users, those that use data sets, databases, today they're happy to use or continue to use database and data sets. They're not really attractive by moving to the service when they know that the content is more or less the same. So, and what we faced as the subsequence is this, that both European Commission and other pan-European users have not been very enthusiastic exploring European location services. And after the consultation we have run through the bodies in the European Commission, so it appears that they're happy to use data sets right now, but the services requires more adjustments and developments. So the one of the trigger that we faced last year was the developments of Korean cover plus products and the announcement about the requirements for Korean cover, and this was the Eagle Group that invented the term hardcore data, or we use the core reference data sets that would be very useful to use in the European Commission as a sticking features for the other applications. So we thought that this is actually a very good idea, and the only one thing that we thought that our community from authoritative sources could deliver this primitives of geographical features that will be used for pan-European users. So and then we turn to the conclusion that if this is the requirement by user, and if this brings content of Inspire data closer to the user, we need to go forward. We need to meet these demands, and instead of staying on this high-level AT kind of platform and offering complicated services according to users' eyes. So we should do something straightforward and deliver, if they need the data by dataset, let's deliver the data by dataset. But we like to utilize the services of Inspire, and we like to use our infrastructure of the data supply through the services. So that's why we initiated so-called Core Reference Dataset that addresses two themes, transport networks, road, rail, and hydrography at this instance. And we aim to harmonize it and provide it as a first delivery, or the simplified version of Inspire delivery in terms of the content. So, and now I'd like to pass the word to my colleague, Sonia, which will introduce you to the more technical details on developing of this product.
Yes, hello from my side. We at BKG are working for Eurogeographics at the moment to create this first prototype of the core reference dataset. As Saulius has already said, it's for this first version. It's quite a limited set of themes that we work on. It's just the hydrography and the transport network. Always based on the Inspire, but with a limited content. Just for the hydrography, that's just water course, standing water, and the land-water boundary. And for the transport network, just the simplified road network, railway network, and the railway stations. We're talking about large-scale data. For now, the Eurogeographics has data sets at the medium scale and small scale, but this is the first try at a real large-scale data set. So we call it the multi-scale approach because we're going to accept data something between 1 to 10,000, 1 to 50,000, depending really on what the countries can deliver and what they have available. The positional accuracy really also depends on what the different countries can provide. And the coverage we're aiming at is, of course, for the highest priority is the 28 EU countries, but of course we're happy for everybody, every European country to contribute to the CRD. What we're trying to do is we're using Inspire data, but we're trying to make it simple. So it's easier to use, and the workload we have to put into it isn't that big. So the first thing to make it simple is to reduce the number of themes. And the other thing is to flatten the data structure, the data model. So just a quick look at some things we decided to make simpler for the CRD. If in Inspire there, as all of you know, the Inspire, we have properties that are defined as data types. And in CRD, we are just going to have them as simple attributes or as concatenated attributes if there's several data types that we put together. So just simple attributes. Then the quite complicated transport network with links, link sequence, and link sets. In CRD, we're just using simple links, nothing complicated. The linear referencing is possible in Inspire, but for CRD, we decided to leave that out, just have simple links with attributes. If somebody delivers data that uses the linear referencing, we have decided to just split the lines accordingly if necessary. But to be honest, we haven't, that's just a theory. At the moment, nobody has delivered data that uses linear referencing, so that's not really the problem at the moment. Then in Inspire, there's the multiplicity can be bigger than 1 for some attributes, data types. For CRD, we decided to just keep it simple, just maximum is 1. Except for the geographical names, of course, there can be several names for each object, so that's not the problem. But for other attributes, it's just 0 or 1. And again, for Inspire, there may be different geometric types for the same features. And to keep it simple, we just decided to have it just either if we need different representations of one feature, we split it into 2 features, the watercourse L and the watercourse A, to have the surfaces and the lines. Or we decided to just take one, like for standing water, we decided only to stick to the surfaces and leave out the points. So that leaves us with a very simple data model. At the bottom, you have just the railway links, the road links, and the land-water boundaries. They don't have names, so there's no connections to anything else. And the other 4 feature types, they have names. That's why they're connected to a geographical names table. But that's just compared to the Inspire data UML model, it's just very simple. We've received data from 17 countries up to now. That is quite good. That's status Wednesday, so I haven't had a look at all of the data, but that's quite okay, I think. Of course, there's some difficulties in some countries, but in general, it's working quite good. We have 2 ways of delivering the data to us. It's either the countries can deliver straight away their Inspire data, and we do the transformation to the CRD data model. Or if the countries can choose to do the transformations themselves and transform their Inspire data to the CRD data model and deliver it to us in the CRD data model. That, of course, it's about half the countries deliver their original Inspire and half the countries deliver the CRD data, mainly based on the insight that in the Inspire data they have available, there's not all the data that we ask for in CRD. We only ask for Inspire data, Inspire information, nothing additional, but still they realize that not all the information needed for CRD is in their Inspire data, but they have it in other sources. So they take in other sources and bring both sources together in the CRD data model. But maybe in future we can, they can see that it's necessary to have this information in Inspire, and maybe it gets better with the next version. So Saulius, you continue.
Yeah, thank you. I'm conscious about time. Sorry, Robin, that we're occupying so much. So then we do some activity also beyond the data capture. Also, we do the harmonization, the edge matching on the borders. And the members have been asked to edge match their data either by themselves, agreeing on connecting features. And we have a edge matching guidance in place for how to make it and recommending the way forward for the achieving European coverage. For those that haven't managed to do so, we do the centralized edge matching. Then technical coordinator BKG will do the connectivity, and then later on we'll validate with the countries and have a accept the comments about those connecting features. So, and this is the timetable, how we see the product to be launched. So, and we aim to have the version 1 in April next year. So, and in the meanwhile, we have proposed to Eurostat that this data could be used by European Commission services, and we hope that Eurostat will be considering this proposal. So in any case, we have a quite big number of contributors, and we continue to develop this concept. So in addition to the European location services and the interactive Inspire services. So, and this is my last slide. What we want to say that despite we started triggered by requirements of core inland cover, but core reference data set is not really only for core inland cover. It is kind of a universe data set that would be used for various purposes. We like to meet the demands of European Commission of different services. Maybe not all demands by this product, but at least that will deliver the core reference data. Started with the two teams. We again linked to the Inspire, so and we intend to use the Inspire content, and we flatten Inspire. We believe that Inspire is a way to go. So, but the deliverables, the way how to offer the content, and content is king, as many of us say, should be the priority. So, in the transportation networks and hydrography are the first teams we investigate, but also there are plans to target more domains and like addresses and digital elevation model and others. So it will again depend on the interest of the user and how we will get this interest on board. And also, as I said, this what it was presented actually has a consistent part with the developments of open ELS as open services. We intend to offer CRD at least as a part of CRD as an open data, and also we consider that this could be established as a service again by centralized infrastructure. Then we are raising performance and getting more users linked with a really well operated service. So thank you very much. Sorry for taking so much time.
Good morning, Michelle Klaas from the Department of Environment, Guyana. In terms of you mentioned sustainability. So in terms of sustaining your services, could you give a few examples of how you strengthen the position of your members?
Eurogeographics is the Association of National Mapping Cadastral Authorities, and we operate with the European Location Services, so with the contribution of our members. So our members decided to invest actually in sustaining the platform and the delivery mechanism. So it is sustained in such a way that we have a certain financial and organizational basis of operating with them. So as I said, we also try to benefit from European Commission funded programs on developing the additional bits through the projects. And as regarding to the financial stability, we also try to cover some of the costs that would be covered by the support of the European Commission. This is mainly under negotiation with the Commission bodies how we can offer the services to. So we have the main agreement with the GISCO team in Eurostat that serve as a custodian for European Commission spatial data, and when we agree, that the data could be used by Commission services with one body, then immediately it could be used by all free of charge. So since you made this agreement, so but of course currently we're facing some difficulties because so far by 5 years we're more investing. We're not getting any revenues on those investments, but this is made by mapping cadastral authorities, by public bodies.
Thank you all. Okay. Thank you all for staying, especially because we should now be in the coffee break. I will try to be brief, but I want to do justice to the work that Maria Teresa and I have been doing in the background now for several years and this is the only opportunity really have had to present it. Maria Teresa and I wanted to, say, volunteer for this part of the Elise work programme because we both had some impact assessment training. But it's fantastic that she's not here today, because I want to congratulate her for the birth of her child in July. So that's very nice, but I hope that I do our work justice. So I'm going to basically give you a little tour of that history of the work that we've been doing related to policy evaluation and the ICT assessment process that Digit look after. I'm going to explain a very simple and light approach that we've been taking here about reusability of Inspire data scope for European policy making, and a possible approach of how we can provide feedback to policymakers based on some of the other work that we've been doing recently. Like I said, I'm going to try to be brief, but I just want to draw your attention to the first element of this slide. Under the EULF blueprint, colleagues like Ray Bogoslavsky highlighted that we need to consider, for whatever is location interoperability, a term I'm not going to define now, issues around policy and strategy alignment. There's a real opportunity here for looking at a consistent way between the EU and the member states for their policies and legislative approaches to make better use of location data and information, to reuse it. And they made a series of recommendations around this topic, and I just want to again draw your attention to the first two, but I leave everything here in the slides for you to look at later, to do with the role of location data in the policy cycle. So I will read them out quickly. Where possible, evaluation of the relevance of location information should be fully integrated into existing policy assessment processes and instruments at all levels of government. And in the second one, explore which location information and services are involved at any stage of the policy cycle. Now again, not to read it all, the point is, because we have things like Inspire and so much well-defined semantic assets about the data, we can look for those data-relevant issues in upcoming policy. Now, again, not reading through the full list, but taking close attention to the last recommendation, from the consultation the ULF had with the member states, it was suggested that when we're dealing with this activity of seeing policy and data together, we should try and identify the criteria used to assess the law, policy or initiative on handling location data and information. And essentially, this is the work that I'm presenting now. So EULF set this up as a problem and opportunity statement. It said there's a lack of policy coherence, has led to contradictions, inconsistencies and differences about how we're using the kind of data we all know and love. But at the same time, a coherent approach should be very useful. I'll leave the details here for you to read later. But to be a little bit more clear about what it is that Maria Teresa and I have been doing, we wanted to know to what extent we can help align policies within the EU's overall objectives around location interoperability. We wondered about the different layers in the European interoperability framework, especially the legal interoperability layer, because in the past I've said Inspire can actually provide a lot of evidence to all 4 layers of the EIF. This is a chance to go into a bit more depth of that one. And also the existing ICT assessment method. Maybe it's also applicable or useful for you in the member states. The point of the presentation is to show what we've done and you can reflect on that, to say which elements look like they're worthy of going into more depth. Can we have a screening process as policies are being proposed to see where we need to investigate things further? And lastly, from my work in ARENA, what are the reusable assets, data models, data objects, reference material that you can use to investigate and support policymakers? We've got a large corpus of material. How can you take a filtering process of that and say, policymaker, you need to be aware that there's something called Inspire and you can really build on it. This is partly the purpose that we've been testing. So let me say a couple of words about better regulation. It's one of our flagship initiatives in the European Commission. It's here to simplify policymaking, streamline legislation, improve the quality of any new legislation proposals, that's important for the scope, reduce administrative burden, particularly for the member states, data sharing, not too many times on the same topic, for example, enhance the transparency of decisions being made, and also monitor policy implementation process. Of course, in the Inspire conference, I don't need to explain that too much. All of this, again, backed by the involvement of stakeholders. There are consultation processes here. Moreover, better regulation allows us to look at when a new policy takes into account existing initiatives. There's a lot of layers of policy that are developed. There are many thematic silos, but this is a cross-cutting initiative to try to make a more cohesive view. Beyond that, proposals do not duplicate existing provisions, and they also integrate efficiently into the current scenario. So you're not necessarily inventing something brand new just because your policy feels it should be special. This is being controlled in the overall impact assessment process. And the important one for this presentation, there's flexibility in adapting to changes in the technological landscape. That doesn't just mean the ICT, but it's a particular feature, of course, we're dealing with. More specifically, there's a tool that a policymaker uses in the European Commission to check to see if their proposal is going to impact on ICT. So there's two elements I just want to draw your attention to. They create a register of proposals, and there's also reports on the impact assessments here. This is run by Digit, our colleagues, and I put a reference for your purposes. So going quickly into the approach that we've done, it's very simple. We set up an experiment. We took a sample from those different registers to select examples and to essentially set a range of criteria that would allow us to know this policy is relevant to Inspire. If Inspire had the opportunity to provide evidence to this policy, we'd be able to capture it through a filtering process. And our colleagues that helped us with this work looked at 50 initiatives. Now, I'm not going to go into detail again, but I just want to let you know that many of the things in the basic ICT assessment that are there already, we basically agreed with Digit. Location could also be read instead of the word ICT here. So when it says look at issues to do with ICT in the policy, we said you could also say look at issues to do with location in the policy and the general principles of this approach. But two, just to draw your attention to, there can be a direct criterion that we had in mind. Our existing specific location and data policies referred to in the initiative, so the proposal for intelligent transport systems makes reference to the Inspire directive. If we were back in history and saw that, that would be a trigger for us. Simple. But a little bit more complicated, maybe there are some that are relevant, and in that case, do they make reference to geospatial standards, are specific data sets mentioned, themes, or even data objects? Plus, there's some other criteria to help identify policies that might still be relevant, we want to pay attention to, but we're probably not going to be working on intensively. Again, there's not time, I just leave it here for your reference, that we looked at several examples, and just draw your attention to the crosses that occasionally we're really talking about location policy, like Copernicus, but a lot of the aspects we're dealing with here in this middle column involve a little bit extra work to really analyze things further. So, being very quick here, I wish I had more time to explain what we did, but the good news is there's, of course, a report that you can read. We recorded the outputs in a structured way. We gave a brief description of the policy as we've understood it. We tried to link it back in with the strategic recommendations of EULF to give a policymaker some broader advice. And more from my perspective, we tried to link it into what Inspire offers already, what's the thematic scope, and using the Find Your Scope tool, what are the spatial objects that are maybe relevant for that policy. And we've been testing that in practice recently with Digit. We also recorded any cases we thought didn't make sense, just to start to collect and analyze those later. So I leave you just with a couple of examples here very quickly. I've highlighted where there are some things that you're familiar with as terms and spatial objects like Natura 2000 sites, habitats, landscape features. These are geographical things we can think about. We have issues here on the policy alignment that links more, of course, with ULF concepts. And I also draw your attention to a couple of extra recommendations that ULF makes that explains why they would be involved here. So I'll take the last one as an example at the bottom here. Make effective use of location-based analysis for evidence-based policy making. It's a statement of fact, but associated with that, there's a series of guidelines that ULF has explained how to put that into practice. So it's not really meant to be an intervention in the policy process as such. And again, here are some more geospatial concepts and data. What we've done here, essentially, is to set up a very light process with our colleagues in Digit to keep an eye on the policies that are coming through and being developed that could be relevant to Inspire. So if you are looking at the use of Inspire, the reuse of Inspire, both inside the environmental domain and outside, we're at least paying attention and able to give a little bit of advice to policymakers who are maybe not even aware of what we're doing. So here's just a quick list of examples, mainly from DG Move, that are interested, because of the work hostel with Marie-Therese on intelligent transport systems, other opportunities of using Inspire's data and standards and technologies. So, in conclusion, and I've been very brief, but I think we all need a coffee. We have here an opportunity of a small addition to an existing process that's very much part of policy making in the European Commission, where our intervention, in some sense, is helping to raise awareness about why geography can matter for policy, and for us in JRC to understand how to really do that on a technical level. Policy alignment may emerge from this process, but I would already begin to say legal interoperability as a concept has many facets. It's good that we're part of the existing Digit process, but sometimes we'd really like to go deeper, and We can't afford to do that just now. Now, it's good that some of the screening activity can be done by anybody. If we say Inspire, Copernicus, GEOS, GNSS are location policies, and you see those written in somebody's policy proposal, great, that's easy to pick up. But as I want to draw your attention to that column of X's, where you need to do some interpretation and understand something and do some more work, that's not for everybody. That's for geospatial specialists who understand about how that data could be evolved. So from that point of view, Inspire's assets, the data models, the data itself, the work that I've been doing in ARENA, helping to share catalogues about reference material, could help in new policies, but the policy process is very fast, and there's only a little window of intervention. So the question that Maria Teresa and I had, because it was part of our scope in the request in our work programme, is what you heard today. Could that be relevant in a member state context or a regional government context? Do you have a catalogue of spatial objects? Do you want to talk to the policymakers about what they're proposing? It's quite concrete things to link on, but what's important is it's the intersection of these things and understanding how that intersection between data and policy works that we're starting to explore here. So I want to finish, say dankjewel to the people who helped us in this, from KPMG, Lorenzo and Massimo, and from Antonio Rotorno, who gave us some initial inputs to the work really on how geospatial data objects could be used, to Sophia and Cecile, who are looking after the ICT assessment process today in Digit, and to Kostas, who was responsible for this activity before and is now at OLAF, and he very kindly kept it simple and allowed us to participate in his activities. So, any questions? Thank you.